to podcasts. It is, when people are at the gym, massively when people are driving. So, I think that's, and the way that we get our own favourite radio station, perhaps if we're in the car, this is very much a very similar thing going on there. And you feel, it's true, you feel like you know that person because they're sitting there talking to you. And I think that's a really, really interesting way of looking at it. So you've been doing this for some time now. Mm-hmm. Are you able to chart the benefits that it's actually brought to your business? Are you able to recognise those?
Yes, I would say benefits are bringing me to a new audience, meeting other entrepreneurs. It has definitely blown up my circle of online contacts. So, for example, I went to the Upreneur Summit last year, and at that I listened to John Lee Dumas speak from the stage, and then I met him and his partner, Kate Erickson, afterwards, and they run the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast, which is one of the largest entrepreneurs podcasts in the world. I don't even know what their downloads are. They're probably, I don't know, they might be I'm sure they're in the millions. But at that event, Kate and I chatted for a little bit, and then she had emailed me afterwards to say it was really nice to meet you. And I said, I'm launching a podcast. Would you like to come on my podcast? Thinking nothing to lose. And she did. And I thought that's amazing. Like, I would never have that connection otherwise. And then now we are connected. And it's the same with Natalie Ekdahl, but also the whole She Means Business program. Nobody else from the whole island of Ireland is on that program. And how I got on that was through connections of people that I had on my podcast. It was Jennifer Corcoran told me about it, and she's been interviewed on my podcast. So it's really grown my circle of connections online. And then I did an online summit earlier this year, and I think that at least half the people I asked to come on as my guest experts I'd met through my podcast. One brilliant way of growing your podcast is being a guest on other people's podcasts. So I have been on an Australian podcast. I've been interviewed by a guy called Bill in America on his 2-Minute Tips podcast. I've been on several the Simplifiers podcast, and it raises your profile with a new audience. But also it gives you a bit of clout, the fact that you say, well, I am a podcaster as well. I definitely identify as being a podcaster. So I'm just thinking, what else has it done for me? Promoted my services, probably brought me more of the one-to-one clients than any other medium I think that I've used. So yeah, it's been hugely beneficial, definitely, for raising the profile of the business. And I think as podcasting grows in the UK as an entrepreneurial thing, the fact that I'm already 47 episodes in, stands me in good stead, because I heard somebody said recently that voice is the new medium to grab hold of, and voice, what does that mean? That means podcasting to me.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And I can think of, 3 or 4 businesses that I know personally, I think would hugely benefit from this. Those people I'm going to be talking to. So if you were to give people your top 3 tips, if they're thinking, okay, this is something I'm really interested in, I'm going to give it a go, what would be your top 3 tips?
Okay. Number 1, get a good microphone. The Snowball is only £49 on Amazon. So, yes, it's more than buying your coffee, but it's not more than going out for a night out and with dinner and drinks, is it? So it's a good investment, and I've had mine since January and it's never failed me. So get a good microphone. Decide what your topic is going to be. So I would like to do a lot more of the on-air coaching calls, because that shows how I can actually help people. At the start, when you're launching and nobody's ever heard of you, it's not hard to get good quality guests, because in my first 10, I had some really big names in the online business world who were on the podcast. But you get a lot of people who pitch you to be on your podcast, and you have to think, is this actually the road that I want to go down? So if you have somebody on your podcast as a guest and they are promoting their book or their product, how is that actually benefiting you in your business. So you need to be very careful about that. So that's why I started doing then the solo episodes and the on-air coaching calls. But I still love doing the interviews of people's businesses because I am fascinated as to how people start and grow their business. I mean, I'm just really passionate about women starting businesses, and I love speaking to them about that. And as I said earlier, that grows my network. So that's get your good microphone, make sure you know what your topic is. And the third tip would be consistent. If you're going to start a podcast, you have to decide what your schedule is. If it's once a week, if it's once a month, but don't say do one on a Monday and then the following week put one out on the Thursday and then give 2 weeks a gap, because people just will not subscribe to you. They won't tune in. They'll not know when you're turning up. It's not very professional. So consistency, way more than consistency in terms of putting out a regular blog or a regular email. I think for podcasting, it has to go out on the same day every week if you're going to do a weekly podcast.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to our perception and use of radio, is that if there's a particular radio program that we listen to, if they started playing around with when it was on and when it wasn't on, we'd soon get fed up of it, and and we'd get angry because we were missing the thing that we particularly tuned in to listen to. So no, I think that's great. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Louise, today, because it is something that's sat in the back of my mind. And you see, one of the things that I was always I didn't quite understand was that, you see, I don't have an iPod. I'm not a massive music listener. So it was, well, how do I get hold of these things if I don't have iThings?
Yes.
And I'm an Android person. How do I get them? So actually, you giving us that kind of information in terms of the fact that we're not have to be tied to Apple if we don't want to be. And, the idea of getting started is we need to think really seriously about it, because if we start, we've got to keep going. So It is about planning.
Now, yes. I would say, Kathy, some people do it in seasons. So Callie Willows from the membership site Guys has her own podcast. I can't remember what it's called, but she does it in seasons where she'll do a series of 10 and then takes a break and then does another series of 10. So quite a few people do it that way. And that
so a bit like TV programs, that kind of thing. Oh, okay.
If you're organised and good at batching, you could record 5 one week and 5 the next week, and then put them out over 10 weeks and then take a break. You could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, mine is just a weekly show. The other thing was somebody else, I heard about this in somebody else's podcast, and I actually did it myself last week. So I was at my book club with my friends, and they said to me, I don't really know what a podcast is. So I literally said, give me your phone. I downloaded the Podbean app. I showed them my podcast and I hit subscribe. And I said, right, next time you're out for a walk, now you can listen to the podcast. And I've heard other people say that too. Literally take your friend's phone and say, here you go, have a try and see. I mean, I think podcasts are life-changing, but that's because I am just really in that zone. I love them. I really love them.
So we need to make sure we've either got an iThing, the app, and probably a dog, and that we need to go to the gym more frequently.
Yes, but people say they listen to them when they're ironing. Or
I don't do that. A man does that for me. That's the one thing I don't do. Iron Man does my ironing. So it's very different to other mediums in that you can consume podcasting content while you are doing something else. That's right. And if you're doing something else while you're listening to the spoken word, it is something about creating a hypnotic state. Yeah, and even though you don't think it is, it's actually going in much more effectively. So get that iron out, girls and boys, and get your podcast on. So, thank you so much, Louise. What I'll do is I'll make sure that in the description around the video of this that I put links to everything that you've spoken about, so that people can go and check those things out. And Is it okay if people may have questions that perhaps they contact you directly?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, of course. So it's louise@socialbni.com. Yeah, love to hear from people. Questions.
That's smashing. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a a brilliant rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks,
definitely.
Kathy.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Social Bee podcast. Come and join us over at www.socialbeeni.com and let's start creating a buzz about your business. And if you like what you hear, please pop over to iTunes and leave me a review. I'd really appreciate it. See you next time.